Welcome home, y'all. We are live from Detroit. We are right by Pistonsland, where today is the first day of early voting in Detroit, not to be mistaken for all of Michigan, which begins their early voting process next Saturday. But we are thrilled to be here for an incredible rally that's just down the way with Pistonsland. Detroit Pistons will be there. Several acts, including Little Baby, will be performing today. And we are bringing the best and the brightest of Detroit to you here today. I'm here with Andrew Gillum and Tiffany Cross, my co-host, Native Land Pod.
Welcome home, y'all. Well, I want to say, do people realize, just a little sports knowledge for you folks, the NBA Pistons are known as the bad boys of the NBA. I don't know if they're still known as that, but they were at one point. So I'm honored to be here in Detroit. And can I also give a quick shout out? We asked you guys for recommendations on where to eat, and we had a lovely black-owned meal last night.
It was delicious.
They went without me. I had a headache, sadly.
Angela she was doing all this stuff, so she had a headache. But we had shout out to Savannah Blue for accommodating
Savannah Blue was delicious.
So
Thank you.
So grateful.
And we're also joined by a couple of Detroiters.
Yes, we have a live audience here.
Shout out to our
various cars.
Thank y'all for being
Big
here.
up.
Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home.
And we also have been joined by someone who has the key to the city herself.
The real key.
Literally.
Open doors.
The legendary Detroit City Council president. Her name is Mary Sheffield, and she's joining us right now.
President.
Thank you for having me. As we say, what up, though?
What up, though?
Welcome to Detroit.
Thank
Glad to have you all here.
I
We're
love
so
how
happy for
Detroiters
having
say
us.
Detroit.
I'm sure you do.
You have this thing. I like that.
We got swag here.
Yeah. Y'all also carry blades sometimes.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Mary is nonviolent. She practices nonviolence.
That's right.
Mary, I want to ask you, this is the first day of early voting here in Detroit. How are you feeling about everything? What are you seeing?
You know, we're seeing excitement. We're seeing momentum. There is some contrast here. I mean, just yesterday there was some, high-ranking African-American influencers in Detroit who were at a Trump rally. And so I think there's just a lot of healthy dialogue that's taking place. We know that Michigan, and particularly Detroit, is a battleground city and state, and that the road to the White House comes through Detroit specifically. So I think people are a bit anxious, nervous, optimistic, but knowing that it's going to be a tight race. And so when Trump won last time, he literally won by 2 votes per precinct. That's how tight it was. So we really want to hone in that every single vote matters in this election. Every single vote.
Can you tell me when you said a healthy dialogue's been taking place in light of some folks choosing to back Trump in the community? Tell us what that.
Well,
what does that
I
sound
just
like?
think that traditionally people who have not been a part of the political process are more engaged now that I've never seen before, and I think we need that. And I think having a healthy debate is always productive and necessary. Now, whether or not where it lands, I believe that everyone needs to be on one side in this race, regardless. I mean, our democracy is at stake in this election, and I think the progress that we made in Detroit, the sustainability of keeping that momentum moving, it really takes place in that White House. And so, but I just think seeing different types of influencers, rappers, getting involved in the political process is needed. And I think that that's healthy as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, early voting begins in Detroit earlier than it does for the rest of the state. Why is that?
Well, we've made it an easy access to vote in Michigan. We want people to have no excuses whatsoever to be able to go and get their votes casted. And so there was a concerted effort years ago to make sure that early voting took place in Detroit, and our city clerk has been phenomenal to make sure that there's absolutely no excuses. 2 voting polls, voting centers in each council district, so there's 14 locations where people can vote right now up until Election Day, and it's really just to make sure that we get the voter turnout as high as we can. Traditionally in Detroit, we have not had the best voter turnout, and so we're trying to eliminate any barriers, any excuses, and make it as easy as possible for people to vote.
Which is so key in this election because, as people know, Detroit is one of the most populous cities when it comes to the black population, particularly in Michigan. So I'm lovely to hear that.
I want to ask you too, and I do want to acknowledge the city clerk as well as the deputy city clerk, Andre Gilbert, who was so instrumental in ensuring that we were able to be here. I also want to shout out the hotel whose patio we're using. We're at the Hotel St. Regis, and the owner, Christos, has been magnificent. But just to go back to what you were saying about healthy dialogue, I think we've had like these very heated debates on the podcast about when is it time to cut off the conversation? Should you be cutting off the conversation? Have you been in any conversation? We got to be here.
I know. Angela does not
I
like
will
bees.
get up and run.
I am trying to snap it away.
I believe that's a plant. That must be the fans right here trying to distract me from my point. But I was going to ask you, Mary, What types of conversions have you seen from people who said they're undecided, or folks who may have said they're voting for Kamala Harris or said they're going to vote for Donald Trump, who have shifted? Have you been engaged in any conversations like that?
I have. Even in
what happened?
I mean, to people that I know, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think the more that we educate and the more that we make those connections, the correlation between your quality of life, your everyday living, and your vote, the easier it is, the better it is. So yes, I've had those conversations where people have shifted from, originally maybe wanting to support Trump or not really understanding what was at stake. And so I think, again, those healthy dialogue and conversation is important so people can understand what is truly at stake for sure.
So him not wanting to do business with black folks, not letting them work in his corporation, not letting them stay in his accommodations when they can control it, not paying his bills to black folks, demeaning us, not seeing our humanity in any way, shape, or form. I do have a difficult time. I'm probably the most open between the three of us of talking.
No, I think Tiff might have you beat.
Nah, Tiff's not. She don't suffer fools. But I'm having a hard time having conversations that grow and evolve with folks who start off jump not recognizing the fact this man don't like you as a person, and therefore, what could he do for you?
Right.
Even talking about Detroit, to have these high-profile performers, join him, it's like he bought you cheap, bruh.
Have you seen people transition from supporting him after what he said about Detroit?
So not necessarily, and I think some of the same individuals who we know who were out taking pictures with Trump, I think they've been kind of silent still on who they're endorsing or if they're endorsing anyone in this race. I know Kamala was here recently. She had a radiothon with Charlamagne the God.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if some of those influencers
She's here today.
She's here today. Yeah. Yep. So I think we have to understand the importance of it. This is not a game time. It's not a time for a joke.
Yeah.
And so it's just important that we have those conversations. And when Trump was just here, he disrespected Detroit in front of Detroit.
Of course he did.
But also we had the business leaders of this
embracing
city embracing it and clapping, which is another thing we have to work on. But again, we know he continues to show himself time and time again. And I just think that Detroit, we have to get up, we have to show up, and we got to vote.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I also, and I wonder to what extent you experienced this, but black men are the second highest demographic behind the Democratic nominee historically since our conversion to the Democratic Party. Are there economic messages that you think Democrats have to do a better job at communicating that if we hear it, it sinks in? For instance, Kamala Harris's plan around small businesses and the loan and the grant forgiveness. Does that resonate or too little too late?
I think it was an opportunity to let them know that we hear you. I've heard internally that black men did not feel a part of the campaign, and so her initiative to come here and have a conversation with black men, I think, went a long way, because we hear a lot about reproductive rights and we hear a lot about abortion, which is extremely important, but I think we have to also message black men as well too. So I think having that initiative around economic empowerment was big, whether it was too late or not. At least she tried. At least she tried to say that I hear you, and we're going to address you all as well.
It also should be noted, because I think you make a right point, to have an agenda. She may be the first president, certainly that I can remember, who have ever delivered an agenda that is specifically targeted toward black folks.
That's right.
And for candidates who say, because this morning I heard a Trump surrogate say that their agenda, his agenda for the country, is also for black folks.
That's right.
Well, when the country is impacted equally by what black men are impacted by, then we can get everybody is included in this agenda.
That's right.
But until that happens, it's got to be something.
And we know there's not an agenda on the other side for sure.
Right.
Not at all.
Not a real one.
Right. Not at all.
What are your local races? Just for local folks who are listening, what should
local
folks know about
races?
the local
So
races?
I actually will yield to she's going to be on the ballot coming up. Yes.
Right.
But I will say, coming up after the presidential race next year will be an open seat for a lot of the city council local races. The mayor's race, council will be up, and so a lot of shifting will be taking place in the landscape here in Detroit, which is exciting to see as well. Our current mayor will not be running again, and so that seat will be open. And we just know that Detroit, as much as we're growing and progressing, we still have have to address some of the social issues in Detroit. And I mean, we still have one of the highest poverty rates in the country. When 1 in 3 of Detroiters are living in poverty, those issues have to be addressed. Our neighborhoods are coming back for sure, but we wanted to make sure that it reaches more people as well. So we're excited about some of the races forthcoming, and I want everyone to stay tuned.
Yeah, we wish you well.
Thank
wish
you.
you
I was
well.
going to ask you.
Andrew, do you remember me from YO?
Of course I remember you.
We were in
It took me a
YO
minute
together.
Young Elected Officials Network that Andrew co-founded
yep.
and People for the American Way.
She's
So
a star then, a star now.
And that's the thing I was going to say. What Andrew built in concert with so many of you all was a real bench of people who are pushing forward with progressive policy. And to that end, we have joining us the Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, Kyra Bolden, who's also on the ballot this time. Mary's not breaking any news today, so I was wondering if she had any people she was picking for the mayoral race next year. But right now we have Kyra joining us, and there is an imminent election. People are going to vote right now. So Kyra, talk to us a little bit about your race and what you're expecting.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I just want to say my husband is a fan of the podcast.
Yay.
So,
what we got to do to get you to be a fan
Well,
of
she's
the
a
podcast?
justice.
So, as a
and
justice, I
whatnot.
try to.
Well, you can be impartial
out.
and listen and
Yeah.
see if we're doing all right.
Yeah.
All right.
She didn't say she did.
Well, I'm on. I'm listening, and thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me. So, so I am on the ballot. I actually ran for Michigan Supreme Court in 2022. I lost by 2 percentage points. And there was a 1 million vote drop-off between the governor's race and the nonpartisan section of the ballot. And so I have, being here in this space now, just been telling people, you're already voting.
Vote the ballot.
You have to vote the entire ballot, and don't miss your judges and your justices, especially with a community that is so justice impacted.
Yeah.
People that are making decisions about your lives every day, you have to vote for these people. Not every state has the opportunity.
That's right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
But we do have that opportunity in Michigan, and I am on everybody's ballot in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just honored to sit in this space as the first black woman to ever serve on the Michigan Supreme Court, as well as the youngest. And as well as being a new mom. I have a 2-year-old, and I actually ran in 2022 pregnant with my first child and had my baby in the middle of the campaign. So
you're a superwoman.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. I love that you're on the court, because I think we in this country spend so much time focusing on the Supreme Court of the United States, but the lower courts are also where black women are underrepresented, and in some spaces unrepresented. So a lot of people sometimes, I think, have a challenge with prosecutors. Vice President Harris, of course, is a former prosecutor, and we always try to point out on this show, prosecutors decide what charges to bring, what charges not to bring. When cops misbehave, they're the ones who bring charges with cops. They're the ones who can decide not to prosecute low-level offenses.
To recommend?
What sentences, exactly. So what is the significance about having a black woman, a young black woman, on the Supreme Court? And I just want to remind our audience that Donald Trump, during his tenure, appointed over 200 mostly white male judges to lifetime appointments, and it can take a generation to undo the harm that causes. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head by saying generations, right? So when we're thinking about the Michigan Supreme Court, or just judges and justices in general, diversity on the bench is so important, especially on the Michigan Supreme Court. There are 7 of us, right? We need to have representation at that very important seat to make sure that everybody in the state of Michigan is contemplated when we're making important decisions. I have a different lens than some of my colleagues. And I will tell you, sometimes the question might be, what is reasonable? Well, what is reasonable for a 6-year-old black kid and what is reasonable for a 50-year-old white man are different. And so bringing those perspectives to the table when having those very important conversations is incredibly important. And I can say, as a person sitting at that table, it is important. It's incredibly important. The other thing that's really important as far as me being a black woman is just representation. I tell this story sometimes, but I was working in an after-school program in college, and a little black girl that looked like me came up to me and said, Miss Kyra, can girls go to college? And the amount of youth that come up to me that said, I never even thought about going to law school. I never even thought about being an attorney. I never thought about being on the Michigan Supreme Court. But now that I see it, I can see that for myself. And that is so incredibly important. So not just the voice that's bringing those experiences to the table, but the impact on the youth and seeing themselves in positions of power, so important.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about representation, and I know, Mary, we have to let you go in just a moment. You're busy today, but I do want to acknowledge we have representation at the table. In addition to Andrew, we have another black man who has joined us. He is James Tate, the City Council President Pro Tem, and the most exciting thing about him right now to me is this "I voted" sticker.
Yeah.
So he said, "I exercise my franchise first. I don't just run. I also vote."
That's right. It's important to me to make sure that I be an example for the black men in particular who have pulled themselves out of the process and not realized that the amount of power they have on a daily basis, right? They give that power away, and unfortunately, when they give that power away, something else fills that vacuum. Mm-hmm. And we've seen over time that something else is not in our best interest.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we let you go.
Yes.
Not you all can stay with us just for a moment.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Madam
We're
President.
so
I will be
grateful.
back. We'd love to
City
come on
Council
again.
President
Look
Mary
forward to
Sheffield,
it.
anytime. We can't wait to have you back.
I'm going to get to the President Pro Tem in a moment, but Justice, I would love to know, we have always been able to, I think, rely on the courts, particularly the highest courts in our land. And in this state, you sit on that court. But after the U.S. Supreme Court decision and creating Donald Trump a king, I think a lot of people's faith in the court has been shaken. I'm curious to know at your level, the state level, are you experiencing this sort of increased level of partisanship at your level of government, or at least at the court level that you all supervise, that causes you concern as a justice?
The one thing that's really interesting is in Michigan, in order to even get on the ballot, you have to be nominated by one of the major political parties, which is very unique. I think Michigan is the only state that does that. And so the Michigan Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Green Party, and so on and so forth will nominate justices for the Michigan Supreme Court. But we are nonpartisan on the ballot. So with that being said, it is a huge concern for Michiganders, given that the parties are the ones that are nominating the nonpartisan justices. However, my experience on the court has actually been very collegial, very thoughtful. Even those that have been nominated by the Republicans, I have found that that there's a healthy dialogue, and there's definitely a respect there on the Michigan Supreme Court, which I appreciate. You have to be able to try to get things right. And it requires that people with a diverse thought process, some that differ from mine on a particular case, is represented at the table. And so there are concerns, and understandably so, but what I have experienced is a court that works very well together. Sometimes I may change someone's opinion, and I might change someone's opinion based upon our life experiences and thought processes. But again, I think that's why the process of electing our judges and justices in the state of Michigan is so important, because people have the opportunity to hear from me, and people have the opportunity to go to my website and see my events and things like that. And so you can vet your own judges and justices here in Michigan, and there's a level of accountability that I think there's not on the federal level.
I want to just for a moment go to you, James, and just I was asking Mary before you arrived about the types of conversations that you're hearing on the ground. To me, I can't believe that the presidential election is as close as it is here in Detroit, especially after what former President Donald Trump had to say about Detroit. What are the types of conversations you're hearing when people are saying they're undecided, or they're voting for Donald Trump? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this. So I host 3 community meetings every month,
okay,
and a lot of community engagement. And I ask the question often over the last couple of weeks, who's excited about this election? You see some hands go up. Who's nervous about this election? All the hands go up at that point, right? So then I ask about, who's on this side, who's on that side, and who's undecided at this point. And so then I ask, well, why are you undecided? And what I'm hearing is these are folks who just literally don't believe in government at all.
Wow.
They've taken themselves, again, as I mentioned before, out of the process. Now, they're on our sidelines. They're complaining. They're saying things aren't right. But in terms of them believing in government at all, they're just not there. Now, they'll tell you, well, Tate, I like you. I'm here for you. And so that's why it's important for me to make sure that I keep that connectivity to them, whether we talk about young or old. I was at an event this past weekend, and I saw this brother and his family. It's a nuclear family, husband, wife, 2 kids. Both of them just got off work. The kids had just picked them up from school. And again, are you involved, engaged? No, not really, but I will be now. That's what he told me. I said, okay, well, what about this big election that's coming up? Now, if you're voting, I mean, if you're on the ballot, I'll vote for you. I said, I'm not on the ballot. What about this is the big election? And he told me, no, not really. I'm just not feeling it. And it's amazing to see and hear that there's a disparity when we talk about what folks are expecting from the 2 candidates, right? I'm not hearing a plan. Well, brother, did you go online? I can even kind of run some things to you. And then he says, well, the other guy, I mean, all he does is lie. I said, so what else do you need? What else do you need? Because that's what's going to set the policy. What's in their heart, what they're telling you, that's setting the policy.
Yeah.
And then he's telling me about these commercials that he sees. And he's just regurgitating things that he's seen in these commercials. And again, I ask him, have you done any research at all? Well, no, but that's just bad, isn't it? So we have to make sure that those of us who are on the ground, on the local level, that we constantly stay in contact with our community and bring them in, not just during these 4 years, every 4 years, but every day we have to make sure that we are reaching out to them. And as the chair and the founder of the Task Force on Black Male Engagement here in the city of Detroit, there's a lot of connectivity. So we have conversations. We were going to have a walk today to get folks out to vote. We got a couple other things going, but we are going to be out next weekend. We're going to be out the weekend after as well. So we're going to keep on pushing, getting our black men in particular engaged in this election.
I love that you asked the question, what are you hearing from the other guy, the other candidate? Because when I hear the point, I haven't heard a plan. I'm like, if you ain't heard one from her, just listen to him.
Right.
If you've heard him, you ought to that ought to be enough to help you make up your mind. But I'm curious. I heard from the council president her response to whether or not you feel like the Harris campaign is going far enough with articulating a message that would be resonant with black men.
Yeah.
And I think also I'm going to take this moment to talk to my Arab American friends. Obviously, there's a huge population here. And, we know exactly where they stand. We know how they feel. We know how horrible the last 1 year plus, I mean, it's much longer than that, but we know what it's been. Here are the concerns. But I think at the end of the day, the unfortunate situation we're in is that there are 2 options.
That's right.
And one option, sure, the administration has not called for a ceasefire as soon as we'd like to see it. There hasn't been an arms embargo. I do believe confidently that that is coming very soon. But the other option is someone who was in office for less than 1 year and moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. That is a line that no previous president was willing to cross. Less than 1 year. Let's not forget about Jared Kushner.
Right.
That
the
is
secretary of all the things.
Okay, I'm like, he might be Secretary of State. And so I recognize that we are between a rock and a hard place, specifically Arab Americans. But this is my individual plea just to say, like, I'd rather fight for Gaza, for the West Bank, for Lebanon under a Harris administration versus Trump, because they are looking to turn that into Israeli beachfront property. Let's be honest. So I think, it is very difficult, and I understand it's hard for them to cast that vote, but there's only 2 options on the ballot.
Somebody's going to win.
Somebody's going to win, and it's 2 people.
Sound policy.
One of the questions I have for you, Portia, as a community bank, a credit union, you are the one that's responsible for lending to members of our community more often than not. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you're seeing relative to home ownership, small business loans, and the kinds of things that you all are working to ensure parity and access there?
Absolutely. So,
and then just move your mic up so we can hear you. There you go.
Sorry about that. And so I think those are the key pillars of this election that's most important to me, especially as now leading a financial institution, specifically here in Detroit, where access to capital, entrepreneurship, those are things that we're all taking from us at a point in time. And so now to have those things threatened, to have the institutions that were put into place to ensure that we had long-term sustainability are now at the top of the chopping block, I think this is the most important time, in Detroit's history. I think this whole rhetoric that came out yesterday about make Detroit great again, which is absolute asinine.
Nonsense.
I think that's a slap in the face to all of the entrepreneurs like the Melissa Butlers, the Gillian Bradleys, who've invested into this area and fought to make sure that businesses thrive here. And so for all of the people that have been putting into the work, you know, having that type of rhetoric, those type of conversations as if we haven't been putting that work in, you know, is insane to me. And so now as a leader of a financial institution, I'm charged with making sure we continue to provide access to capital. And so when you think of things like interest rates, how the Fed controls the environments that we're able to lend to, those things are even more important, because what will happen is those products and services become more restrictive. We don't have a government that's in support of us providing more access to capital and then giving support to the institutions that do that. We are a CDFI. That's super important. CDFIs are threatened every day with additional restrictions being put into place, and all that does is limit the access that the consumers will have to products and services. As Melissa mentioned, makeup, things like that aren't essential, but we still want them.
What is a CDFI?
CDFI is a community development financial institution, and so what that means for us is we actually get support from the government to provide funding and access to capital in underserved communities, Detroit being, of course, one of those. And so it allows us to take additional risk. It allows us to look at things beyond the credit score. It allows us to create products and services that systematically people of color and migrants have been excluded from, because things like credit and things like that. So it takes out some of those systematic banking policies that have held us back and allows us to at least have access in ways that we haven't before. And that's why you see things like small businesses driving. A lot of that is not being driven by banks, it's being driven by CDFIs. And when you start thinking about policy, we have to make sure that we're supporting a government that is going to think about those things and how it impacts the bottom line of small businesses if those things are eliminated.
I love that. Gillian, I know is another business owner, Harper K, on your own. I'm curious to...
Harper Ray.
Harper Ray, I'm so sorry. Harper Ray.
Yes, Harper Ray.
One, tell our listeners a little bit about Harper Ray. And then second, I'd love to know how you feel the administration, how government impacts what you get to do from day to day.
Yeah, so Harper Ray is a fashion jewelry brand marketed directly towards women. Generally, jewelry is marketed towards men to buy for women. So that's the difference with us. And it's named after my grandfather. He was actually one of the first black anesthesiologists in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
So definitely some history there. And one of the main points that she's made clear, that Kamala has made clear, is that she wants to give funding to small business owners like myself. I'm able to employ other black women. I'm able to give back to my community. We do all type of drives and things like that where we're giving back to shelters all around Detroit. And if I was able to, get capital at the beginning, I would be a lot further, a lot sooner. And, we have to support the people that are giving back to us.
Yeah.
There's obviously, there's one candidate that has a plan, and there's one candidate that doesn't. And,
Has a concept of a plan.
Has a concept of a plan. And, I think at this stage in the election, if you're still undecided or if you're, teetering that fence, it's like you're making a choice. And I think things have been very clear.
Yeah, and so really, to any of you or really all of you, for the black men in your lives that you get to interact with, I'm curious how those conversations go. Is it a pro-Harris conversation? Is it a pro-Trump? Is it a really none of this stuff is impacting our lives from day to day, year to year, and so what does it matter? We were doing all right during Trump. We did all right during Biden, and we'll do all right with whoever comes next. Curious to hear y'all and what that experience has been like.
I'll interject.
I'm sorry, go ahead. You go first.
I would just say, fortunately, the men in my life are supporting Kamala Harris, so I haven't had to have a lot of difficult conversations. But I will say, I was at one of my best friend's houses recently, and conversation did open up, and there were some people, obviously, that I'm not connected to. And I do think a lot of people, because, I'm Ugandan, so I will say, I don't have a whole lot of family in the U.S. My family is definitely all voting for Kamala. But I think for a lot of people who do have a lot of family here, I think we can't make any assumptions about how people are voting.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have the tough conversations, even if you just have to text folks because you don't want to talk to them in person, that's fine. But I think it's really important, since we're in Detroit and thinking about the state of Michigan, you can have those conversations. We still have 17 days.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about Michigan is that you can register to vote the day you go and vote.
Oh, wow.
Even on November 5th, you can register to vote that day. So have the conversations. It's not too late. They can still register to vote and vote the way we need them to vote.
I love that.
Same. Luckily for me, all the men in my life are definitely supporting Kamala Harris. But I did have a cousin who, I have a cousin who is a Republican. He voted for Trump the first time, but he's not doing so this time. He did take a lot of talks and things like that from my family, but he came to his own conclusion, even that, the state of the world, like of the United States when Trump was in office was not, was not favorable for anyone almost. We were towards the end, and even when Biden was running, we were all like, maybe we should just break up. Maybe we should America should be single for a while. We shouldn't have a president. That was the sentiment at the time. So it's like, is that a place that we want to go back to?
Yeah.
I think it's the easy answer.
Yeah.
I think my experience is actually much different in both of these ladies. A, being a leader in a financial institution in an underserved community, we have a lot of people who come in who are just detached, people who really don't see an immediate impact, people who are misinformed, people who don't really have a true understanding of what this means to them. Things like CDFI funding, things like affordable health care, the Obamacare, things that are on the chopping block, a lot of them don't resonate that to this election. And I am the oldest. I have 3 younger brothers. And I really feel they felt a sense of displacement and not having an identity in either candidate. For some reason, some black men have fear of Kamala Harris. And I don't know if it was to your earlier point of her being a prosecutor and how systematically, there were things that were put in place. But I think we have to take some accountability there, too, and say, okay, hey, yes, she was a prosecutor, but she was prosecuting people for things that they did wrong, you know? And so, and for her, like, there's education, there's inclusiveness. I think things that now black men are starting to see. I think the best thing that she did for black men is started talking directly to them, so that they could really understand how she plans to impact them by strengthening the African American families, creating a pathway to a middle class lifestyle for many of them who've been excluded. Education, as we know, is one of the biggest things that has held us back from wealth, and so now her putting plans in place that will support those things really, I think, is starting to help black men identify with why this is a better choice for them. Because to everyone's point, Donald Trump is not for you.
Right.
Yeah,
Why are we arguing so much about why she's for us when we know that he is not?
Right.
And so I think that just needed to be clear. I really do like how she started talking directly to black men so that they can also find place in her. Because to Melissa's point, we black women, we see ourselves.
Yeah.
Black men did not. And so I think for her to just start talking to them has really helped transition a lot of their thinking.
And before she put out this plan, she was already, I just want our audience to know, she was already talking to black men. She was hosting dinners, she was hosting private conversations. So yeah, absolutely.
So we're so grateful to you, Jessica, Gillian, and Portia, for being here with us. We're gonna go ahead and let you all go. Hopefully you all are early voting today as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Y'all are awesome. Wish you well.
Next up, we are going to talk to the brothers. The brothers speak next. And we have someone who is a legendary voice in Detroit. I don't know why he's outside of the gate, Lolo. If you can go get Bushman standing right there. Bushman, Detroit radio legend.
Did we talk to Bushman yesterday?
Yeah, we did.
Say it again.
Didn't we talk to Bushman yesterday?
Yes. Oh, yes, we did talk to
Bushman. Spoke to
us. On
us.
the radio. I know. And then we also have Eric Thomas. I'm thrilled to talk to Eric Thomas today. He is a legendary entrepreneur, a writer, a strategist, and storyteller for the city of Detroit. He also asked a question at the town hall recently with Kamala Harris and Charlamagne the God. So I can't wait to hear that feedback. You can go ahead and put your headset on. I'm sorry. I hope we don't mess up them edges. They're laid, honey. They are laid.
We playing it close. You got me out here bad.
I got your back. There you go.
He's coming. He's gonna join us later.
Y'all look good. You look good, brother.
You guys.
Bushman, you bring snacks?
You said you would. He told us yesterday, y'all, he was going to bring us something to eat.
That was a Detroit fib.
Detroit fib. My Lord, I thought y'all were.
We have our own kind of fibs.
Y'all slide.
Let me ask you guys.
At least I do.
So, the thing that we share in common. So I met Bushman the other day, and aside from talking about deer, which we took a little time to talk about some deer.
I did almost. I missed this beautiful shot of some deer this morning.
You did. Bushman, put your mic up. You know better than us about that, Bushman. You've been doing this a long
It's
time.
loud, so I didn't want to go.
No, it's not loud for us. And if you need to turn your volume down, you can. But now, here's the thing. I met the two of you just a couple of days ago at the town hall that Charlamagne hosted with Kamala Harris. I want to know how you thought the town hall went, Bushman, and then I want to come to you, Eric, to see what your response was to her
response.
question. To your question and her answer. What did you think what got right? What did she get wrong? All of that. But Bushman, I'll start with you.
I thought it was amazing. I didn't even know anything about it until I was driving into work listening to CNN, and that's how I found out.
Oh, wow.
Then I called my boss. I'm like, did you know that Charlemagne coming? She's like, what? Yeah. And then it all came together, and I thought it was amazing. And other people obviously thought it was amazing, too, because the impressions that we've gotten, and they're still
30
growing.
billion.
Yes, and they're still growing over that. And I've gotten so many DMs, so many text messages, so many phone calls, so many emails about how did this all come about, and they thought it looked really, really good.
Yeah.
Love that.
Highest rated interview for Kamala Harris so far to date. Eric, I want to hear from you, and then I'm going to pivot to my co-host.
I'm deeply amused. You just hit my man with the Leonard. But all right, Charlotte.
Sorry, yes. I call it, his mama named him Leonard. I'm going to call him Leonard.
Listen,
That's how
I'm calling him Charlemagne. I don't know him that close.
I understand.
No, it was interesting because I was actually kind of shocked that I got called into that because I'm a bit of a rabble rouser, but the whole gang, right? It was me, Vezzo, Zeke, and everybody. So I try to bring nuance to these conversations. She said at the beginning she was going to stick to her talking points. She did. It felt like
I think she said she was going to be disciplined.
She was.
Yeah.
I think she fit one of the talking points that she had into my question about poverty and how it impacted black men, which is fine. One thing that I appreciate about Kamala is that she's thoughtful, considerate, and intelligent, right? Donald Trump would have started talking about dogs, right? He would have just veered off the curve. I think it went as well as it could have possibly gone. I think it showed her warmth. I think it showed her sincerity. I think it showed that she had a real understanding and appreciation of the black community, which for some reason people are trying to act like biracial people don't have. And that might be something we need to dig into a little bit more. But I like Kamala. I don't know if I was super into the answer, but I mean, healthcare is a poverty issue.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that does fit. I think it is important, but I don't think it is a pathway out of poverty.
Let me ask you, because you said, and I promise I'm coming to y'all, but I just have a follow-up on this really quick. You said you weren't super into the answer, and I think one of the most important things that we've all learned touching policy all the time is, like, it is not a single person sport. It is a joint effort. So, for example, the Black Men agenda that they rolled out earlier last week, that was put together by a whole team of folks, including a black man named Brian Nelson who runs her policy shop. I'm curious to know, when you say I'm not that into the answer, what are the things that you would have liked to hear? Or, you know, if you were advising Kamala Harris's campaign, what would you say? You know, Madam Vice President, here are some of the things that really need to be included when you're talking about coming from poverty and trying to get folks into the middle class where they deserve to be.
So I think I'm with you. I've worked in politics and policy for a long time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to keep it a little loose, right? You can't get into those details. You don't have time. I think talking about, if I ask for how do we move people from poverty to middle class, I would love to see stair-step measures where we're going to be investing, right? Earlier, Portia was talking about CDFIs. I work for a CDFI. So where are we investing? What geographies are they going? How does education? What we talk about reparations? Is there reparation for the war on drugs, right? Like, maybe you can't go all the way back to slavery. Maybe that's difficult. But we do know all the people who were impacted by marijuana incarcerations for things you can go buy in places that look like Apple stores right now, right? And so we know that if you get taken out of the workforce for 25 years, that you're going to come at a distinct disadvantage. You're not able to vote. You're not able to work certain places. You got these boxes that they're trying to ban. So how are we looking at that really systemically? And this isn't saying that all black men have been to prison. I have not, but we do know that black men are over-criminalized and are impacted by the criminal justice system at a higher rate than most. Even I was pulled out of a car for dancing too much, dressed like this. All right, so there are all of these challenges that we see that I would love to see. What systems are we working actively to invest in and dismantle to move someone from one place to the next? So those are the sort of things I like to look for.
You talked about liking Vice President Harris after the town hall, but I'm really curious because, ratings aside, how many people were moved to vote for her? How many people were moved to be active for her? So less than our personal feelings, I'm curious, since you were in the room, do you feel like it was impactful in terms of changing hearts and minds and more so motivating people to get to the ballot box and cast their vote for her?
I'm not going to say exactly who it was in the room because I let people tell their own stories. But I remember one of the people in the room said that he was incredibly impressed by how she presented and what she presented, as they have met most of the presidential candidates. And it's not this idea that like everybody's doing the politician thing. It was, look how thoughtful that was. Look how well she knows the issues. Sometimes it's not even like I want to know that you're going to do everything on my side, but I just want to know that you even know what the issue is. And Kamala comes across as incredibly educated on what issues impact the American people in a way that other candidates don't necessarily seem like they have a full grasp on that or reality. So
Where you moved, though.
Can I interject? I posted a video of her when she was walking in to the studio, which I typically don't like to do stuff like that with politics because, I got to stay neutral. And I definitely don't like to go read the comments because they can go left to right.
Yeah.
There was a lot of positive comments of people where their minds had been changed by that town hall.
So it was impactful.
It was very.
I think it was.
I think it was.
I think that counts the most. And we have a new guest joining us. I want to welcome you to the conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think your mic is out.
Okay. Yeah.
I think their mic is out. But yeah, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll rope you into the conversation.
Well, I'm Bravo, born and raised in Detroit. I am a hospitality and nightlife partner. Own 6 venues around from restaurants to nightclubs to lounges, and I'm also a cast member on 11 Mirrors Detroit.
All right.
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you for being
Are y'all
with
in?
us,
Y'all taping now? Are y'all in?
We
production?
just started. We're second season mid break. And then Huntsville starting up, and then we're going to start back up after that.
So you interact with a lot of people, obviously, through the course of your work.
I've been a promoter for like 20 years.
Yeah, so you hear it all.
He basically
100%.
could tell us what's the focus group saying, Bravo?
So
we want to know what the streets. The streets are saying what?
That's
What
where I
they
was
saying?
headed.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, but
So I know we're talking about the town hall. So I will say this: it has been a lot of people that have been convoluted by the pandemic of the stimulus funds that they were given. I'm glad that she did break it down. As to it was the Congress that really pushed that.
Yeah,
and and with Trump having a signature on the checks, it's a lot of people that are thinking that came directly from him.
I know.
So that's where a lot of the from Detroit side, because Detroit they spent their money. They spent their money good.
Where do
here.
they think the second checks came from?
The same person that gave the first.
Even though
ones.
he didn't sign those.
I mean, it's
They came from so of course both checks came from Democrats. Those are
100%.
Democrats' priorities. The president had no agenda to resolve the issue around COVID, and as we see, over 1 million Americans died as a result of his mishandling.
Yeah.
I hope folks also know that those checks were delayed. We could
Because
have got them weeks earlier, month earlier.
just so he could put his name on
But
it.
they were delayed because he gave instruction to the Treasury to go back and put his name on the line. Now, our money, U.S. taxpayers' money, that he said, go back, put my name on the bottom, and then you send those checks out. Donald Trump knew something that we clearly didn't have appreciation for at that time, and it's marketing.
Donald Trump is a marketing strategist. It's the only thing he can do.
That's
he can't
all
run
he can
businesses. He can just do marketing.
He can run them into the ground, those businesses, but you're right.
But
marketing,
people
he's
show
got.
up until he find out that nothing work.
Precisely.
Eric, I feel like you could run circles around him on marketing notes.
Oh, God. I
think
just
so.
want to do the debate so bad.
But Bravo, I'm curious. So the checks went a long way with folks.
Yeah.
But when we're not in the heat of an election, and to the extent that government or whatever happens in people's lives and who they blame, do you get the sense that folks make a real connection between what I do every day to make money, a living for my family, for myself, so on and so forth?
Yeah.
They make that connection between how it impacts their lives and what the role of the government is in that.
So I feel like look at the town hall. Icewear Vezo's great rapper here. He did say that. I guess in his sense, he said that sometimes they feel like we get the attention right around election time. I do feel like that things are being passed and pushed all in between that time frame, and I'm glad that it was I'm glad that she actually answered to that. But I do feel like we don't look for it until election time comes. If it really, it's been a lot. It's a lot of bills that passed, a lot of things that's pushed, a lot of grants. But I feel a lot of the people in my demographic, we don't look for it until election time comes. It's not a 3 years or 2 years into the election. I mean, 2 years after the election is over, still saying, I wonder what's new coming up this month by Congress. I wonder. So I feel like it's really on us, that they make it more present during election time, but it's always present. We just don't look for it. And that falls on us as a community, and it falls on the us's, the guys that have the verbal front, a platform to be able to say, I mean, we need to probably say more. Hey, guys, 2 years in, it's 2022. This is the new thing in Congress. If you guys are, and I feel like that's really a community issue.
If you guys are making it, sorry.
I was going to say something. Sometimes, too, with the way the world is, especially in 2024, if we're not seeing it on the gram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it today, it's not happening.
Right.
We don't know that it's happening, and if it's not drama with it, it doesn't get pushed out. The algorithm just lets it go there and you don't see it. So a lot of people ignore what might be happening and we just don't know it.
Y'all have had some high-profile black entertainer rappers of late come out for the Trump.
Yeah.
How is that landing?
Trump.
Do you think it's going to land? Do you think folks are being moved, shifted by it, or is it causing deeper conversation that's worthwhile having?
I'm starting to see more people giving up now. They're tired of arguing. They're tired of. I think when you saw a couple of them at the last Trump rally, you could look in the comments, and some really high-profile entrepreneurs in the city were like, "Hey, we're over it. We're not here." So I think at this point, it's not really pushing any agendas anymore. It's like some people are gonna vote for what they want to vote for in their own, whatever reason they have. I have told a lot of my friends that I told one yesterday at my restaurant. I said, "Hey, if you're gonna post some radical stuff, I'm gonna start calling you out." Now, if you wanna. It's a difference between conservatives and it's a difference between radicals. It's a difference between, liberals, between radicals. It's the radical stuff that I think, honestly, is really, if you push conservative agendas and that fits to your lifestyle, who am I to blame you? Who am I to tell you, you're wrong? Now, it is some things that I feel like you should not overlook,
Sure.
But, I mean, if you're pushing radical, if you hit one person, that person is one person, that's a butterfly effect of radicalism going on. And I think that's where the issue lies.
Wait, I got something for you, Bushman, because we got to wrap. So fold this into your answer. You two, Eric, all three of y'all, quickly. So if you were giving a 30-second, I know people are over it, but we can't be over it because, we're out here because there's early voting starting in Detroit today. So I hope y'all, when you leave here, you go down over there and vote. But if you were giving a closing argument in 30 seconds for why people shouldn't give up and why they can't give up and why they should go vote, what would you say? Bushman, you were going to talk, so go first.
Well, I was just going to say I had not a heated debate about some of the things that were said last night. In this debate, they said there was more to the story than what we got to hear. But what I would say to people in 30 seconds of wrapping up, you can't complain about it in January 2025 if you didn't get out and cast your vote.
I love that.
You got to be about it. You can't just sit around and not do anything. Your vote counts, so get out and vote.
I have a whole wide theory about why people are voting for Trump, but let's do the quick 30
No, do that too. Just do them both in 30 seconds.
Oh, my goodness.
I want to really see how talented you are.
Oh, my. Okay, pressure. Okay.
Right.
I think that Donald Trump exists for a lot of people as a power fantasy. It's why people have liked him for a long time. It's why rappers used to include him in his raps, why he became an analogy for wealth, because he is almost a caricature of what rich people are like, and people assume they want to be like that. It's why people vote on tax breaks for the wealthy, because eventually when I become wealthy. I had a friend say once that all white guys think that they're a rich man in a cocoon, and so they're voting for their future and not their current.
Yeah.
And I see that in some of the rappers that want to be Trump, right? If I had to say why is it important to vote, though, in a city like Detroit, it's important to remember that local elections matter, too. And when you have a through line from local politicians, mayor, city council, up to president, it's why Detroit got the American Rescue Plan with $800 million. When you get that is because Mike Duggan had a relationship with Joe Biden. We had the 5th largest amount of money a city got, even though we're not the 5th largest city. And so you want to think about how the president impacts what your city gets and what resources follow on the through line, because they're connected on values. And so even if you have apathy towards that person, there is a connected thread from the top down to the local leadership, down to the school board, and everybody in between that'll allow you to get access to things you need, even if the president isn't doing what you want.
Yeah.
I love that, Eric.
That
It's
is a
so
whole ad
good.
right
Especially
there.
when Donald Trump
Bravo.
thinks it's a shithole place.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. He got so much
That was like a minute.
nonsense to talk. Bravo, we want to hear you too.
I heard you, Bushman.
I hate
Bravo.
I hate
go
following
ahead.
up at the Eric now because he said everything everybody thought. No, but I mean,
Without
Detroit.
ad libs too.
Yes,
Just saying.
we've seen public schools closing here. People think public schools are with the mayor, but no, they don't understand. It starts with it goes all the way to the governor has more power over the public school systems. The governor now is the government from there. So I feel like we're looking at the headlines of two people, but if you trickle down to what it is, voting does not only pertain to the headlines. It's a lot of disclaimers in there that affects us. Me as a restaurant owner, me as a business owner. It's a lot of disclaimers under there that affects us. That affects, cannabis. Everything in your lifestyle locally. It's a lot of things that you have to look for that we don't really push. We're pushing Kamala and Trump, but they need to go in there. And if they don't know what they want to vote for on the top side, still it's a lot of things to look for on the bottom side that's going to affect you in the bottom end.
That's right.
So that's really the biggest point. On my end. Yep.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Y'all are great. You're perfect. Bushman, Eric, and Bravo S. We're grateful for y'all. Thank you all. Go vote, y'all. Today. Don't wait for the lines to get long.
And I'm going to send them snacks too. Don't worry.
Yeah. You know what the good news is? That's a perfect transition because right now we have Fatima, Tekko from Detroit's Fresh Roots, who is bringing not just snacks, but liquid snacks, liquid wellness and wholeness. And speaking of being well and whole, in addition to the juices she's bringing us so we can promote this amazing Black-owned business, Detroit's Fresh Roots, we also have someone to talk to us about how to take care of your mental health during this crazy election season, Dr. Rheeda Walker, who's a clinical psychologist, award-winning professor, and author of The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And that is this book right here, ladies and gents, and Calm in the Chaos. Okay. Hi, ladies.
I'm ready for my juice.
Now I'm ready for my juice. She can get her head
I
set
have a couple of different kinds.
lift your, so we can hear you, Will. Okay. Got it around.
Here we go.
Good.
Yeah, you got it.
Better?
Yeah,
better.
Okay. I think it's falling back.
No, we hear you. Okay.
Who ordered pineapple?
Yeah.
So they're all mixed.
Ooh, that's mine.
I saw that you guys had.
I wanted
asked for a
the
couple
Sunny
different
Day.
ones.
Oh, he probably wanted orange juice because
okay.
citrus blend.
I couldn't decide between
these
the
two
Sunny
are
Day
mine.
and the citrus blend.
These two are mine.
Wait, let me see what you got on
No,
that one.
I know these are what I ordered. Bee Roots and Balance.
Wait, is that the one with the mint and the apple? The Bee Roots?
No, you have the
nice
one with
try,
the mint. No, he's got the one with the mint and the apple.
Okay,
this
I
is
want
mine.
that
I told you.
Mine has
I know.
beet in it
But I want it.
and some chunks of mango, lime, ginger, carrot, apple. This is kale, spinach, celery, cucumber, apple, lemon, lime, ginger. You know what, Dr. Rheeda, I will share one with you if you want. Which one you want? I'm saying.
I'm getting some of Andrew's.
And
Balance.
Dr. Rheeda got us Cole and
This one, Balance.
Calm and Chaos.
Yes.
I have this
Thank
one.
you so much.
I'm going to drink a little bit, but not much because you guys were sitting here for another hour, and I really got to pee right now, so I'm just going to wait. Sorry, that's the truth. But I'm just going to take a little swallow of my juice. But talk to us about this amazing business, Fresh Roots.
So Fresh Roots' motto is everything is deeply rooted. So it's beyond providing the food and the nutrition that comes with it, but also services to help in mental health awareness and health and wellness and overall health and wellness. I can't get this.
You got it.
We hear you.
Okay. So we also do things like Pilates, yoga. We do health and wellness camps, things like that. So we are located here in Midtown Detroit, and we just opened up our second location in Rochester Hills with plans of growth, with hopefully turning it into a franchise. At Fresh Roots, not only do we do health and wellness from a physical standpoint, but a mental standpoint as well. So meditations and things like that. We also offer other women-owned, Black-owned, minority-owned businesses a place to come and have like pop-ups, and we don't charge them. We don't ask nothing of them. We actually do cross-promotion to help build their brand and business as well.
Awesome. Love it.
So just being deeply rooted in the community, really giving back more than just great product, but amazing services.
I love that.
I love it.
And this is delicious.
It's so
This
good.
is the citrus blend, and it's amazing. And I'm also going to have half of Andrew's. What do you have? The refresher.
He's got the refresher. That's actually my favorite one.
How you got to keep two juices and you going to take half of his
Well,
one?
he can have this one, but I want that one definitely.
Rheeda, I'd love to hear from you as well. Give us the motivation around the title for the book, the reason for writing in this space, because I know one thing, we could all use a lot more
Especially
of
in this
moment.
election season.
Especially in the election season, but just in life, we have to be mindful of how we are dealing with the stuff that just comes at us. And we know it's not just, financial stress, it's family stress, it's job stress, and now we're adding election stress on top of everything else. And I picked up balance because we have to be mindful of how we're dealing with those things. We're going to have good times and bad times. And so the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health came out a few years ago, and I did the workbook so that people who recognize, they're feeling a little like they need more resources, and especially in our community, that we recognize that there are things that we can do so that we can be intentional rather than just keep pushing, because that's what we're accustomed to doing. You keep pushing, you don't let them see you sweat, you look good on the outside, so you're hoping you feel good on the inside, but it doesn't always translate. And so I want for us to be so much more intentional. Calm in the Chaos actually just came out 2 days ago. So that is a brand new book. Recognizing that we're living in really very chaotic times, so we don't have to feel chaotic on the inside.
Tell us if we're average person, Joe, walking on the street, what should we be paying attention for as relates to what's happening with us?
I'll say
snappier. What's the?
I love that question because it doesn't have to be that complicated. If you're not quite feeling like yourself, like something just isn't right. I don't feel like I have my usual level of energy, or I don't feel like I'm connecting with people, or I want to withdraw sometimes, or if I want to sleep a lot, or just anything that changes. And then also, if the person feels like they can't get their work done. So we all have responsibilities, whether they be outside of home or inside the home, but you can't just focus, like your mind just isn't keeping up with your thoughts. Like something, or sleeping too much or not enough. I don't even know if I said that one. That's another easy one. We live in a society where most people don't get enough rest, and we take it for granted. But being sleep deprived affects our ability to do everything, to do absolutely everything. And so those are the kinds of things that we can start to be mindful of.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great choice with the balance.
Well,
Very fitting.
I'm also curious as we get closer to this election. Hopefully, y'all have decided on who it is that you're voting for. But if we were as we are in the closing days, what would you need to hear if you're talking to people who are undecided, folks who are sitting in your communities who are maybe balancing between whether or not this election is going to make a difference, frankly, because the policies happening out of Washington aren't either reaching them or they're in disagreement with coming from the policies out of D.C.
I think it's important to be always aware of our values. It's the same for our mental health, because sometimes, we feel pushed to go in different directions based on other people's values, based on what's important to us. So we first and foremost have to get real about what's important to us. Do we want to live in a society? I'm a mom. Do I want to live in a society where my child might not be able to vote in the next 4 years? Do I want to live in a society that affirms who I am as a Black woman? Like, what kind of society do I want to live in? And I think that's what is important for anyone, to be able to make an informed decision.
I feel like there was a collective depression in the country. I know for a while I just felt kind of checked out. We did a podcast, and Angela was like, do you know what it means to have Tiffany Cross checked out of the process? Because we were so just exhausted with it. And there was a collective movement of joy when she announced, when Vice President Harris announced her campaign and the things shifted. And I wonder, in terms of our community, did we feel this collectively? Did we pull ourselves out of it collectively? Because I think sometimes when people hear depression or sadness or heaviness, and I know I felt like, but I'm not, because I'm still getting up. I'm still putting one foot in front of the next. And my therapist told me it's not about that. It's about the energy it's taking you to do that. And so I wonder now in this heightened, time period that we live in, that we're navigating, how we are, I guess, qualifying and quantifying what it means to be healthy mentally.
Yes. Well, I'm a clinical psychologist, and a lot of how I make sense of what's happening around me is, and for other folks, is how we're thinking about things. Like, your thinking affects your mood, affects what you're doing. And so if we think about, going back to, feelings of depression, we weren't very inspired, maybe didn't have a whole lot of hope. But then we started to think more about the future and what the future could look like. And the future was bright and encouraging and inspiring. And so I think because of that, maybe we were pulled from, a lower place where we were uninspired, and still the rest of life was still happening. So it's not like life stops because of election season, as you all know.
That's right.
Everything is still happening and still weighs on us in a lot of different ways.
I was just going to say, it's striking the balance of, because we have to stay engaged, But then knowing when to cut off that. When I ask people, why are you so stressed about the election? And they say, I don't know, it's just this narrative. And like, I'm watching the news. And it's like, cut that off. Because it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, what matters is you vote and you encouraging other people to vote. Mm-hmm. Consuming all this information, unless you work on the campaign, I don't think is very healthy.
I wanted to come to you, Fatima, because I saw when Tiff raised her last point, you kind of made a face. So I want to give you the floor to, you can disagree. It's still a safe space. It's family. So I would love to know your thoughts.
I'm going to be completely transparent and honest. I have a lot of weight on my shoulders right now. Clearly, I'm Muslim. Mm-hmm. I'm a woman. I'm a woman in business. So there's a lot that I have at stake, let alone a mother. Mm-hmm. I have to be a role model, but in the same breath, I have to protect myself. And there's so much that I can say and so much that I can't say. Because when I did speak on certain things, there was, I guess there is a reaction to a reaction, right? And so what I'm referring to is everything that is going on overseas.
Of course.
I lived through the war in 2006. I was over there, born and raised, American citizen, kids, born and raised, American citizens. So just to really see what is happening over there and not hear more pushback and a ceasefire happening, more support from innocent women and children dying. I mean, it should not have led to waking up to see people dying, being burnt alive with IVs in their arms. How am I supposed to explain that to my kids?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to keep them deeply rooted in everything that they do if I can't tell them that they can speak openly about this without feeling like they're not going to be protected, without them feeling like they're not going to get the same support? When I'm getting text message after text message after text message of somebody running for an American campaign with the Jewish flag in their background. Mm-hmm. It's heartbreaking. And I had a conversation actually with Lo. Man, it feels like when I hear Kamala speak, it's like my best friend that broke my heart. Mm. There was so much that she spoke on prior to this during the Biden campaign. And we were just looking like, okay, family is coming into office. And it was just like, where are you?
Yeah.
What would you like to hear from her?
That's good.
Again, just more in supporting my people as well. I mean, a ceasefire, just humanity, just real humanity.
I just want to be really specific here. So you would like her to acknowledge the humanity of the Palestinian people, which
not just the Palestinian. I mean, we're talking about Sudan. We're talking about Lebanon. We're talking about Palestine. We're talking about Congo. We're talking about more than just one. Genocide is not just in Palestine.
That's true.
Very true.
That's
very true.
It's in multiple places right now.
Yeah.
And our focus is Israel, nowhere else.
Right.
I mean, even in our own country, here in the United States, we're seeing people being taken away from hurricanes and floods and all this, and they're not getting food on their table, like babies.
Right.
As a mom, that kills me.
So acknowledgement of the humanity of people who are suffering genocide right now, which should be pretty effortless. So that makes sense. And you would like her to call for an immediate ceasefire? Is that? I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I want to make sure I'm understanding you.
I've heard her speak on a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same breath, aiding the other side. What sense does that make?
Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting that you would like to see the United States government stop funding Israel, the IDF?
Correct.
And those are those things going to preclude you from casting a ballot for her?
In truth, I'm very undecided right now. I'm very undecided.
And are you undecided between she and Trump, or are you undecided between voting for her
at
or
all?
not? Got it.
To vote at all. Yeah. I mean, again, going back to speaking as a Muslim woman, if I vote for that, I'm voting to hurt my people.
What do you think is the like we know and we say often, and I'm not just trying to throw around stuff that we say all the time, but I do believe it's true. So for example, I grew up working on the Hill. Mm-hmm. That's my the place where I grew up. When members abstain from voting, it's still a vote.
Right.
So if you don't vote, what signal is that sending to your kids and others? Have you contemplated what that might be like?
And that's where it goes back to a little bit on what you were speaking on. Truly, we might not be in a level of depression or things like that, but we are actively in a depressed state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're moving in a depressed state. So it's kind of like that moment where you're just laying in bed curled up, don't know what to do, don't know what's next. That's where it is. So at some point, coming on situations like this and podcasts like this and having conversations like this, again, I had to backtrack because I was so scared to do so.
Yeah.
When I did do so,
You got blowback.
the trolls hit my social media, went on my Google page, went on everything, and brought my ratings down
Yeah.
with fake
Reviews.
There you go. Thank you. And I had to think like, okay, this is just going to hurt my business. So going back and saying I have to be a role model to my kids, I'm trying to be a role model to my kids to get up and speak up. But they're saying that it's only going to hurt you to speak.
Yeah, sure.
So what difference is it going to make if I vote or don't vote?
Yeah.
And
I wonder.
It makes. Go ahead.
Well, I wonder if I can't imagine, right? What has to how you have to make sense out of nonsense.
Yeah.
And this
for
process right now, when you can name the names, you
Yeah.
recognize the faces.
Right.
That would be difficult, I imagine, for all of us if we knew who sat at the other end of the consequence of a decision we make. I am curious if you feel like however the election turns out, that you will be okay with the outcome based off of whatever your decision may be to vote or to not vote.
Again, I'm such in an unsure state at
Yeah.
the moment. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to call. I feel like for me, I have a lot of processing to do.
Yeah.
I have very little time to do
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But I think what was very encouraging is agreeing, like, to do this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a really good conversation with Lo for her to say, no, I think it'll help you to be here. And in truth, it has. I mean, just in this little bit of time. So I can't give you a definite answer, but what I can give you is my perspective. And again, saying I survived something like that, I'm still living here. I have a home there that's destroyed. I have family's home that is leveled. I have family members. I lost 8 people in 1 week.
My God.
Wow.
You hear me? No reason a school should be touched. No reason a church should be touched. Not a hospital, not nothing. There's no reason that there is no uproar from the world in regards to humanity. And when it happened on the other end and it said never again, it should be never again for anyone.
For everyone.
Right,
Everybody.
absolutely.
Can I just say to you, Fatima, and I know we have to wrap, but I want to just say one thing, and I mean it. I don't say things that I don't mean, but I just want you to hear my heart on this. I cannot imagine, just like what Andrew said, what you're experiencing. I am so sorry for what your family, your community, that culture has experienced. It should not happen. But this is the thing that I want to promise you. I know for me, I know for Andrew, and I know for Tiffany, we all know Kamala personally. The thing that I have witnessed and I've helped her to organize are conversations with people she doesn't necessarily agree with, but she's listened and she's pivoted.
Yeah.
What I am promising you is that if you can muster up the strength to get out that bed, and you're out the bed right now, so I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in the moment when you're feeling just stuck, to take that chance and to not just trust her, but to trust us and the Rashidas of the world that are here, to just ensure that you at least have the opportunity to have the dialogue. That is so much better than what is offered on the other side. And there's another candidate in the race that's promising the world but has no allies in Congress to pull off what they're promising.
I've heard.
I am going to promise you that if you can do that, we will ensure that happens. When you listen to our podcast, we don't brush over this issue.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about it and we mean.
Oh, I've heard you
every,
very loud,
yeah.
and that's why I'm here. Another reason that I'm here,
you.
you might not know this, but I've actually done a lot of behind-the-scenes work for you and with you, whether it's the Women's March, Black Lives Matter. I'm sure you're familiar with Queen Yonajaha.
I love her.
It's my sister. So.
That's the young lady that got us in touch with the indigenous brothers. We love her.
So I've done
a
lot of grassroots work.
Yeah.
I've been on the front line for a lot of different causes. And what broke my heart most is when I needed or felt like I needed the team that I stood with, I didn't feel like was there for me. But here I am, and I hear you loud and clear, and I did listen, and I did share a lot of very recent podcast episodes that you did with my kids, and my son literally texted me and said, I feel like a proud parent. So
you're gonna make me cry. I cry about everything.
I'm excited to be here,
that.
and I do feel encouraged, and I do
that.
appreciate it. And the irony of having somebody in mental health
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
So
We needed her too, sis. We needed her.
very much so.
Yeah.
So
And we
I
are
will
your
be exchanging
allies.
information with you.
Please
She
consider
is.
us allies.
She is.
Yeah.
She is
Allies.
amazing
I appreciate
too.
you. Yeah.
But we love y'all. Thank you
Yeah.
so
This juice
much.
is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you
Andrew
so
didn't let me
much.
taste this
We
one.
are
I like this
deeply
one the best.
rooted
It's so good.
with
delicious.
you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
serious. I want to make sure Lolo will give you my number. I want to
appreciate
stay in touch. I mean it, sis.
Okay, for sure. And we are just down the street, so if you
Oh,
guys
we
need
coming
to-
back.
Yeah.
We coming, and we're
one
gonna
of the
send everybody over there.
I
But
appreciate
we
it.
want to support you. We want that
Thank
business
you.
to stay open. So trust me, we
Thank
got
you
you on
so
that
much.
too.
I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Well,
Dr.
Dr.
Rheeda.
Walker.
Yes, we love you guys. Thank you so much. What an incredible.
awesome conversation.
Wow.
And I don't know.
Thank you, ladies.
I didn't want to. It felt odd because I'd hate to put a voter. The ballot is still secret.
Yeah.
Right. Folks should still be able to express that. But as I was listening, I'm trying to think for myself. Like, if I'm in this complex situation,
Right.
will I be okay with regardless of how it turns out? If I
Yeah.
make the choice that I'm gonna stay out, and I'm gonna let them
Yeah.
decide. And I could answer that at least for the moment by saying I'm not okay with any outcome.
Yeah.
Because I know that there are real consequences that flow from that, and I just much respect for the openness and the honesty in that conversation.
But I understand the conflict.
For sure.
Like,
All of us
the
do.
passing
Yes.
a ballot for a government that is funding the killing
Yeah.
of your people,
Yeah.
and that has to impact all of us. Like,
Yeah.
we all have to understand that. But I hear your point, Angela, which I thought was so great, that we promised to get Vice President Harris over the line. We also promised to hold this administration accountable
fully
when it comes to the atrocities, quite honestly, that the IDF has enacted on the world at this point.
40,000.
She said personally that she has to earn every vote. Part of earning a vote is meeting the demands of the voters.
Absolutely.
And to that point, we are sitting here now with the first Black woman international president for SEIU. And Services Employee International Union. We are so grateful for your partnership first, April. I remember April from Cali, from meeting her when you were running things in California, and you have demonstrated what it means to hold on a bipartisan level administrations accountable. And I think just recently you're celebrating a really major win with Kamala Harris's announcement to support in-home healthcare workers. So please talk about that and all the things. And thank you for joining us and for being
Purple
a partner.
people in the house.
So first I got to say, what up, though?
What up, though?
And really, it is an honor to be here. It's been far too long since we got to hang out. But I'm proud to be here in Detroit and talking about what we are going to do for care workers across this country. That I would be remiss if I don't remind us who care workers are. They are overwhelmingly women, people of color, immigrants, and it's the work that enslaved women did. Right? It's the work that our great-grandmothers and grandmothers and mothers did. Domestic work, taking care of people who cannot take care of themselves, our elders and our children. And it's been poverty work, right? It's been work that has been dismissed and disrespected and demeaned. And because of what we heard Vice President Harris say just last week, right? Creating a Medicare program for the first time that invests in home care, we are taking this work out of the shadows. We are going to make this family sustaining work, and we are going to begin to undo the wounds, the immortal wounds of this country that has dismissed us and our work for far too long.
I love it. Well, I've got my experience with the purple folks in Florida.
Yeah, you do.
SEIU has
I
had
bring
my back
love
all
from
the
my
way.
brother Brandon Davis.
Yes, there's Brandon, Monica Russo,
Roxy
and
Nelson,
Roxy,
Alfonso.
the whole crew. All of that was my staff from the
Yes,
campaign.
exactly. I know.
So I love the strategic organizing that SEIU does. You don't just put an idea out there. In fact, before your ideas are out there, y'all have already workshopped the way in which you plan to get it done.
That's right.
So I love having SEIU on the side of at least the issues and the policies that I care about, because I know that means you guys are working to the finish is achieved. I'm curious to know, as you all, as a union, international union, what kind of some of the unions have struggled, and we've been less privy to some of the internal conversations around the debate of Harris, nobody, or the other guy. I'm curious, has SEIU had similar internal debates around where y'all would land?
Well, I will tell you, we convened our board at about 6 o'clock Eastern on the night that Vice President Harris announced her candidacy, the day that President Biden said he was stepping down, and it was a no-brainer. I convened my board of 65 people, and in less than 30 minutes, we had unanimously decided that we were going to endorse our vice president.
People, that's history too. You got a decision out of 65 people in 30 minutes.
Let me walk that back. It was 2 abstentions.
We just talked about that. That's a vote too.
It is a vote too.
Wow.
But it was a no-brainer
Yeah.
for the leaders in my union who have known Vice President Harris from her time as a district attorney in San Francisco. We represent 700,000 people in California, so we know her well. We know that she has walked a day in the shoes of a caregiver in Oakland, California, of a security officer right here in Detroit, Michigan. She walked picket lines with striking fast food workers in South Carolina. She knows who we are. We know who she is. We know whose she is. And so we didn't have a lot of beef, right? We were able to come together, and it was just like, come on, y'all. It is really clear what's at stake in this election, and it's clear who's going to deliver a future for working
So as y'all
people.
translate what y'all's experiences have been with her, which are clearly vast, to the voter out there who is either undecided or not motivated yet to go vote, what are you saying?
I am telling folks all over this country, Kamala Harris's name is at the top of the ticket. But this election is about you. This election is about us. This election is about electing people in this country who give us a chance to fight for themselves. I'm a union organizer. I'm a union president. I'm a power builder. But it is up to us to build power, to take our own agency and do something for ourselves. And there is one person in this race who wants to build an inclusive, multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational democracy. And there's one who wants to usher in a new era of fascism.
That's right.
It's real simple.
I think I did a very brief stint in labor, and quite honestly, I didn't understand the significant role that labor plays in politics, and I would imagine a lot of people across the country don't quite understand that. I think what we do understand is the challenging issues around caretakers. I love that you made the point, this is the work that black women have done during enslavement. I think that's so true. Care in this country is in crisis.
It is.
As someone who's had to be a caretaker for ill relatives, who had to pay for caretakers for relatives, I'm curious, what is it in Vice President Harris's plan that speaks to people who are facing that very issue right now?
Yeah, but again, throughout her career in the Senate, she was a chief sponsor of the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights. So this isn't a new issue to her. She didn't just come up with the idea of investing in a Medicare program. It's who she's always been as a leader. And you're right, the country is in crisis. 10,000 seniors turn 65 every single day in this country. And if we don't want to pay people to take care of them, who's going to do it? And we shouldn't be told, oh, well, it's your responsibility as a mother or a niece or a grandparent or a daughter. Right, because it falls on the women.
Yes.
Right,
and sometimes you're taking care of parents and children.
You're taking care of parents and children,
Yeah.
and it's not just the elder care crisis; it's a child care crisis.
Right. Right.
For most families, the cost of child care is the second largest expense in your household, more than your mortgage.
Yeah.
More than my mortgage.
Right. So let's talk about it. The only industrialized country in the world that does not have a care infrastructure that we can rely on.
That's clean, I
Thank you,
promise.
sis.
I
Thank
ain't
you.
get you. So speaking of it falls on women, we're going to make sure it don't fall on women today. We got 2 young men who are going to join April right now. We have our good brother, Lieutenant Governor Garlin Gilchrist, joining the set. And we also have, I don't see him, there he is. He is sitting down. He got a brace on. Our good brother and friend, a co-founder of Black Voters Matter. He ain't bring me no sweatsuit that says we fight back. But Cliff Albright is also joining us right now. Give Cliff a hand, too. Y'all don't be shady because he ain't from Detroit. He can say what up, though, when he put the mics on. He put the headphones on.
Hi, Cliff.
What's up, LG?
We should tell people why Cliff is limping a little bit. He got smart with his wife a few weeks ago. And so let's just be a cautionary.
Don't be lying on April.
The other April.
Yes, the other April of that. Don't lie on no Aprils today.
I was skydiving to the mountain to climb the mountain to go register some folks.
You should have just taken the escalator.
I like that story.
You should have taken the escalator.
What up, though, Mr. Lieutenant Governor? We happy to have
What's
you
up?
back with us, hosting us in this wonderful city.
Welcome back here to the city of Detroit. We are so proud that this is part of our native land.
Yes.
I am also always honored to be sitting here with my sister April. SEIU in Detroit and across Michigan is one of the most powerful forces for working people. They just won a tremendous victory that was signed into law by Governor Gretchen Whitmer, that I personally lobbied for in our Democratic majority legislature, to put forth an opportunity for home care workers in the state of Michigan to organize, to be respected and protected in a new generational way. And it speaks to that democratic governance is worth voting for, because we can create the conditions for health and wealth for a new generation. And April's leadership and SEIU leadership really made that happen. I'm just proud to be a part of the team.
That's right. And it's important to remember, that's why we give a lot of attention and energy, as we should, to the race for president. But we got to make sure we keep a working people's majority in the House of Representatives, the state house here in Michigan, like in the state Senate here in Michigan. We got to protect, those in our state and local governments as well.
That's absolutely.
I love
Cliff, we so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to be on the pod.
Are you on the blackest bus in America?
Yes, in fact, the blackest bus in America was just down the block.
Oh, I see y'all over there.
Get over here. We would have panned to
the road is blocked off. I don't even know how they would get over here. But
they can't pull in right there?
I don't know.
We'll figure parking out, but
Cliff, go get it.
And we were just giving out some shirts and stuff. We were on the mic just getting.
Did you give out a sweatsuit?
We got a couple of shirts out here.
I want a sweatsuit.
She keep coming back to the sweatsuit.
Yes, I like it.
Hey, Cliff.
Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, you got it.
Everybody else got us some. I mean, what you doing, Cliff? What you doing, Cliff?
I got you. I got a whole box for you.
I have a question for you. One thing that we've talked about, we referenced a lot on this podcast, the work of Black Voters Matter. And during the hurricanes that impacted a lot of the southern region of the United States, I was talking about how you and our dear sister, our good friend Latasha Brown, who is the Maya Angelou to our Oprah. Like, she is our deity in our lives on some level. But she talked about you guys going into these areas and not only registering people to vote, or not even focused on registering people to vote, but delivering them generators.
That's right.
Tell us why you all did that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when we say Black Voters Matter, we mean that, right? We were intentional when we said Black Voters Matter, not Black Votes Matter, because there's a lot of people that care about Black votes that don't give a damn about Black votes.
How about that? Say it for the people in the back.
That's
we
why
have some people in the back.
Right, we got people. But, Latasha and I and April, my wife April, we've been doing disaster relief ever since Katrina. That's the first time we got a big old bus. It wasn't black. It was actually purple. And we started driving it.
That was for you, April.
That's right. That's right. And so, and so that really started our intentionality around not just talking about power building in the sense of elections, but recognizing that it was small churches and neighborhood associations when nobody else was around, when no National Guard was around. That's who was feeding our folks. So we've been doing some level of disaster resistance. And as y'all know, and I know as Andrew knows, a lot of these storms happen right in the middle of the vote. Right, either by the registration deadline or the early vote period. And a lot of times what we have to do, in addition to providing the relief to our communities, is we have to fight those election battles to get governors and to get hours expanded, to expand the registration deadline and all that. And so we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, because I can't go knocking on somebody's door talking about come vote when they got a tree on their house, or they don't have power, right? So we got to deal with our real lives issues, with our everyday issues and our emergency issues before we can continue to talk about the voting issue.
I love
Cliff, y'all have also been talking to black voters, black men voters, particularly long before it became popular a week ago. And I'm curious,
not a week ago.
I've seen more black men on television talking about black men.
That's because it's for their entertainment.
And
I want to have that
non-black, right? Some non-black men talking about black men.
I know. Who asked y'all? Nobody asked y'all. Anyway, I'm sorry. You were asking a question. I got mad.
No, I just want to know, one, how has this resonated with you all as an organization, and the folks who are your members and the folks you serve? Does it feel real and authentic? Does it feel a little overblown? Does it reflect the reality you see and experience on the street?
Right. No, it does not feel real. It feels overblown. It feels like hyperbole. I said last year, I was on some show, and I said, look, people acting like the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. It might be drizzling. Right, there might be a real issue that you got to pay attention to, right? But the sky's not falling. There's not some big, massive shift that's taking place. In fact, the bigger shift that we saw take place isn't the shift happening now from between Biden and Kamala, or even from Hillary from that year. The biggest shift what we saw with black men was when?
During Obama.
During the Obama. It was from 2008 to 2012, right? That wasn't about sexism. That was about brothers feeling like some of our issues, right or wrong,
Yeah.
some brothers felt like many of our issues were not being dealt with at that time. They still feel the same way. So it's overblown. Are there some real issues of sexism is real, misogyny is real, patriarchy is real, and there's some of that group of that 10% that we know is going to vote for the Orange Menace, right? They always do that, right?
Yeah.
They've been doing that ever since George Bush was talking about, what was it, the faith-based initiatives and giving out them grants, right? They always exist. But you got this other batch that have some real questions, that really did want to hear more discussion around black men, that wanted to be talked to, you know, where we are. And for many of them, the agenda that she put out, which I think is an excellent agenda, it actually deals with a lot of the issues that we hear when we're in the streets, right? That agenda is going to answer some of those questions for some of those brothers who will now be like, you know what, I didn't know that. I'm glad to see that. Some of them might still be like, that ain't enough, it's too late, you know, I still don't like you, I don't like your laugh. And guess what? They wasn't gonna, no matter what agenda she put out, it wasn't gonna be enough. But our job is to inform the ones that right now are not getting enough information, because disinformation only thrives in a vacuum. As long as we're having these conversations and giving folks accurate information, then the disinformation can't have as much impact.
For some of the, it looks like he has something to say on it.
I was just saying,
black man.
And then we need to go to April because she's leaving us. She don't feel well, so I want to make sure. I know April, we're gonna get to you, but Garlin, we want to come to you first.
The amount of people who have been just like climbing over other people to be able to take punches at black men on television.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Lord.
It's hardening.
Come on.
And I think the irony of that is, are these the people who then you would trust to have the best interests of black men? Anyone who would be so eager and aggressive to attack women, we wouldn't say was supportive of women. Anyone who would be so eager and aggressive to attack working people, we wouldn't say was someone we would trust to protect working people. And so I think the better conversation is, what is the opportunity that we have to be part of this future? And so that means, yes, laying forward an agenda that is inclusive and responsive to the priorities of people who want health and wealth and opportunity. But it also means that we have to have a real conversation about how people can be invited to do so in the right way. And I just have never, look, this ain't true with my parents, this ain't true with voters. I mean, my kids or my voters. They're like, by admonishing someone is not how you get them to do something. If like getting mad at people was effective, we would be in a much different place.
I want to ask you, April, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe SEIU is also the blackest and brownest labor union in the country. Is that right?
We are 60% women and overwhelmingly people of color.
So when you hear some of the things that we're talking about, I think I got mad. We were on CNN earlier today, and I went off. I was like, why y'all don't talk to these white people? They're the ones trying to cost the election. So when you hear some of these things, what are some of the union responses? For those at home who are dues-paying labor union members, what are the things that you would say to them? Because I know it ain't SEIU members because you get them together. But for everybody else, what would you say to them about the importance of this election and voting their interests?
Yeah. So first of all, y'all gonna stop beating up on my brothers, right?
Not us.
No, not y'all. But y'all. Them.
y'all.
Right? They not like us. They know who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna stand up for my brothers. And like you said, you know, how often do white men vote against their own interests?
Correct.
And how often do white women vote against their own interests?
Or vote in their interest, if we're honest about what their interest is.
That part. So we're not going to try to set this up to blame what I don't think will happen. But we're not going to blame this on black men.
Right.
Like, cut it out.
Yeah.
But to your question, Angela, we know that it's going to be working people that make the difference in this election. I am really proud, and I'm going to brag a second on the $200 million investment that SEIU is making in this cycle. We have a goal to reach 6 million voters. We've achieved that. And we're going to knock 1 million more doors between now and Election Day. And we're doing that because this election is about us. And that's what we're saying in this election. This is about us. This is about our hopes. This is about our dreams. This is about enough power, enough agency to be able to do the big stuff. Like dismantle systemic and structural racism. Like end poverty for once and for all. Like fix a broken immigration system to heal our climate, which causes the natural disasters. Right? Enough power with real champions to do the big stuff. And it's clear, you got a despot right, a fascist in this race who only cares about himself. And so, like, let's have a real conversation about what's at stake here and who's the best people that's going to help move us and our community forward.
That's real.
Love it.
Well, April, we know that you got to go. You got a million more doors to knock on, and we need you well to do that. So I'm empathizing because they know they left me for dinner last night because I had a headache. I was like, bye, I can't move. Yeah. So thank you so much for your work,
But I couldn't be in the D and not come by and say what's up.
Thank
I really,
you
really
so
appreciate
much.
the
Love
way
y'all.
you all use your platform to tell the truth and to use it to be powerful for our folks. So thank you.
I want to give a shout out to Denise Horn too, who made sure that you came on here and was like, and what we gonna do to get her on Breakfast Club? So I'm glad everything worked out because that's up next. No, she's already got it. Yes, yes.
And
very
thank you,
good.
April, for being a partner.
Y'all give April a hand. She fight for working people every day, all day.
April,
Madam
thank
President.
you for being a partner to Native
Yes,
Land.
absolutely. Thank you so much. So Cliff is wearing this sweatshirt that's really supposed to be mine. It says "We Fight Back." Cliff, I
I'm
want
gonna
to
take this off.
No,
and
you
just
go
give it
keep
to
it on. You just taking it off now because you hot. It's got warm out here. You're not slick. But Cliff, can you talk to us a little bit about what We Fight Back means? Black Voters Matter is also a partner of ours, and so I want to make sure we have a clear idea of this theme and why it's so important for us to take our power back and fight back.
Yeah, so when we started I'm gonna give you the true story because when we first picked the theme, we pick a new bus theme every year, and we picked this like towards the end of last year, and actually it was right after the Montgomery Brawl that we picked
our beloved holiday, our wade in the water.
That's right.
August 10th.
Right.
Yes, the beloved white folding chair.
That's
we pay
right.
homage.
That's right.
Tiff is insane.
But what it means is, we picked it for a couple of reasons. One, because, as we always say, when our rights are under attack, we fight back, right? And so, and it's not just that we fight back against something, right? We're fighting back also for something, for a different vision, right? A different vision for our communities and our safety and our health and our jobs and all of that. But the other reason that we picked it is because we knew that there was this discussion, and we just touched on it a little bit, right, in terms of black men, but even more wider, it was about whether or not black folks in general were going to be as enthusiastic, right? Whether or not we were going to turn out is all. And what we wanted to send is a message that, look, historically, when we face tough times, we don't just sit stuff out. We don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines. We fight back, right? We get involved. We get in the game. Yeah. And so we wanted to send that message that, right now in this moment, and yes, there were some issues. Y'all just talked about a major one in terms of, our dear brothers and sisters in the uncommitted movement. But although there are some real issues, we don't have the luxury of waiting on the perfect. Yeah. We've got to be in the game. We got to fight back, and that's why we're going around the country spreading that message.
I love that. Garlin, Lieutenant Governor, I should say. My bad. Lieutenant Governor, I would love for you to spend just a few moments as we've got a bunch of Michiganders who are paying attention, listening. Yes. Some who are here with us today. Yes. What else should folks be aware of coming up on your ballot this in 2 weeks as motivation for them to get out and vote the ballot?
So in Michigan, this election is incredibly consequential because not only is the person, and that person will be Kamala Harris and her partner Tim Walz, who wins the state of Michigan at the presidential level, will win the electoral college, win the election. But we also have an open United States Senate seat here, and Senator Debbie Stabenow is retiring from her long service to the state of Michigan, and we have Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin, who is ready to be the next United States Senator here from our state. And that's important because in order for President Harris to pass her agenda, she must have at least one chamber of Congress. And so by protecting the Senate seat in Michigan, that'll make sure that we are one step closer to at least having a 50+1 majority in the United States Senate. Now, a little bit closer to home for me, on the state level, Michigan has a one-seat majority in our state House of Representatives. And let me tell you something about that one-seat majority. It's been the most productive legislature in Michigan in 50 years in terms of putting money back in people's pockets by repealing the tax on retirement income that Republicans put in place 13 years ago so that they can give tax cuts to rich people and big companies. It has quintupled the working families tax credit because there are so many people who are working in Michigan and still need a little bit of help to make ends meet. And this is putting $3,200 in 750,000 households' pockets. It is lifting half of the children in Michigan literally out of poverty with this. That one-seat Democratic majority delivered that at a time when things are so expensive. We have to hold on to that majority because all 110 members are on the ballot. And so I'm literally leaving here to go knock doors for one of our candidates in Macomb County. Earlier this morning, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 3.5 hours away, kicking off people to knock doors in Grand Rapids, Michigan for one of our members who made us the majority the last time. So I'm basically organizing 60 to 90 people every single day to go knock doors someplace in Michigan every day between now and Election Day. You know, we have to make sure also, and very importantly, I know you had her on the show here, but I got to lift her up again. The Michigan Supreme Court also has a one-seat Democratic majority, thanks to Justice Kyra Harris Bolden, and we need to elect not only send her back to the court, but also elect a woman named Ken Thomas alongside her, which will give us a 2-seat majority on the state Supreme Court. And the trifecta is the governor and lieutenant governor, plus the legislature, plus the Supreme Court. And that is what leads to progress in Michigan on the climate crisis, on environmental justice, on economic opportunity, on the pathway to health and wealth, on the record investments in public education, including free breakfast and free lunch for every kid who goes to school in Michigan. Like, this is what we're voting to protect and to lay the foundation to expand, because even if we had even just one more seat in that majority, a 2-seat majority would have held us go even farther on our Reproductive Health Act to protect reproductive freedom. Because we got everywhere except for there's still an anti-science, anti-woman 24-hour waiting period on abortion services in Michigan. There's no reason for that, but we couldn't get that across the finish line. But if we had just one more vote, we could do it. So that's why all these elections are critical, and I am doing my best using my platform, the privilege that the voters in Michigan gave me to be able to go every place in Michigan and still be home. That's why I go every place from the Upper Peninsula to the southwest and southeast of Michigan, and right here in Detroit, we'll be knocking doors on the west side tomorrow about the opportunity you have to put your stamp on this state's present and future. And so I'm excited
about it. And let me tell you, speaking of going west, I want to go all the way to the Best Coast really quick.
Oh, here you go.
To introduce to some of y'all, I'm taking a point of personal privilege. Sitting next to her, Lieutenant Governor Garlin Gilchrist is a good friend. We went to Saintory School together, where I'm from in Seattle, Washington. His dad was the coach of the Supersonics that I really want Seattle Supersonics to come back. I know our resident sports expert knows all about that, Tiffany Cross. But there was also a baller. Garlin is a baller, but there's a baller named John Blair Bickerstaff, who is now the coach, the head coach of the Detroit Pistons, and he's joined us today. And I'm so, so grateful you did. I'm more excited just personally because I'm like, you go come. This is great.
No, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to it. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
All the way since probably 4th or 5th grade.
Right,
it's been some time.
Wow. 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah, but I've seen him online. He's been killing it. He's been killing it.
Thank you.
So talk about the importance of having Pistonsland here, the first day of early voting in Detroit. Why is it so important? Why was it important for you all to be involved?
I think, even before I got here, the Pistons have done a great job of being a member of this community, understanding what their responsibility is, the platform that they have, and their ability to reach people. I think one of the things that we take pride in as a sports organization, the NBA as a whole, is one thing that sports does is it brings people together, and it unites people that look like, every different color from every different place from all over the world. It attracts that. So if you have that large of a platform, it's part of your responsibility to make sure that you're reaching out and just getting people involved, right? All of us got here on the backs of somebody else, and it's our responsibility to pay that forward, and that's what the Detroit Pistons are doing. They're giving people an opportunity, creating an environment for them to understand what our civic duties are, and then we got to go out and impact change the best of our ability.
I love it. I won't ask you anything that's going to get you in any trouble. We want you on your job.
Because I hit you. I just told
I
you.
I know. But I am curious to know whether or not your team has a commitment around your members voting. I know I've heard different coaches commit to 100%, players, staff, administration, getting out and voting where they're registered. I'm curious to know whether you all have a similar commitment or are working towards it.
We're working towards it. Obviously, we just got here not too long ago, just got the job not too long ago, but we had the Secretary of State come down and talk to our guys. We've hired someone, Misty Boyd, who's there helping as well, and we're pushing to get all our guys either registered here in Detroit if they can, or some of them have residence other places, so we're working to get all those guys registered to vote and participate in the process.
I love that. I guess I could have asked Tiffany because she knows that. She probably
if you guys don't mind, I think my co-hosts don't know a lot about sports, but I'm going to shift into a little bit of sports conversation.
Be careful.
I would like to know.
Where's the fact checker?
I would like to know. It is a sports question. When the Pistons were known as the bad boys of the NBA, which they were, you guys.
Thank you, Tim.
During the heyday.
Look at Garlin is hunched over.
You know, because he don't know about my sports knowledge. During the heyday of Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, who now works at the NBA, by the way.
Okay, good job.
And oversees operations, by the way. He's played for the Pistons. How might you have advised them during that era? There was a game where they walked off the court and did not shake the hands of the Chicago Bulls. This was a major. I'll explain it to you guys after the show.
Can you name one more Pistons player in that?
Joe Dumars.
No, you already said him.
Isaiah Thomas.
Can you name
those are
another
retired.
Rick. White guy.
Lambert.
His name was
Bill.
Bill. You know who
There was a Rick Mahorn, though.
There was a Rick Mahorn. I thought you were going there, right?
I think that's who you were talking about.
That's who it was.
That's who it was.
Rick, there's a Bob too.
Anywho, how might you have advised those guys when they walked up and didn't shake the hands? Do you think that is like part of the norm now, or would you have said no? You guys should have shaken the hands of the Bulls.
I have no clue.
Oh, and Dennis Rodman also played for the Pistons.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Why did John Blair say okay?
What would have been your
I'm trying to figure out where we're going.
She
Yeah,
was
but it's okay.
If you were their coach, would you have said yes, shake their hands, the Chicago
So
Bulls?
relevant.
Yeah.
Good.
She's talking about good sportsmanship. That crosses over
Yes,
to
thank
politics.
you.
I get it.
Thank you, you guys.
Good job, Tiff.
Definitely
thank you.
always preach good sportsmanship, but I think when you go back to that group, the rivalries were deeper than that, and it was, those rivalries got personal. So those guys did what they did. They won a ton of games. They were champions. They set the tone of what I think Pistons basketball should be, that toughness, that mentality that they played with, where they didn't concede anything. So those are the messages that we're trying to give our guys now as we try to rebuild this, and we're using them as a way to establish that. Like, we want to go back in the past and appreciate those guys and their legacy, and hopefully carry that forward.
Well, if there's ever the opportunity, I know this is your way of probably asking, so I'll just spare you for having to ask. I'm happy to come talk to the players in any kind of motivational capacity, if you
But
will.
not about sports.
Definitely about sports.
You got her number, right?
Yeah.
I'll get it. Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that I give her guidelines that include do not talk about sports.
No, I got sports guidance for them.
Shut up and don't
We'll
dribble. Or talk and don't dribble.
What sport did she say? Did they make a goal?
Anyway, Andrew, don't be embarrassing me in front of my
Look, she got the
sports
whole
friends.
panel laughing. Anyway, so if you guys are making closing arguments today about the importance of getting out the vote, telling people to go right here to vote, it's early voting in Michigan. Of course, in Detroit, rather, a huge concert taking place. We want to be entertained, but we don't just want people to be entertained. They need to do something with that. We have to take action. What would you tell them?
I think the simple thing for me is, you can't complain if you don't participate.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, we sit around and we talk about the problems, we talk about the issues, but then we don't participate in ways to solve them. And it's our responsibility. We live our lives. We're trying to pass things forward to our families, our children, those types of things. So if we don't participate, we don't have the right to complain about it when things don't go our way.
That's real.
I met a 19-year-old guy named Deontay in Flint a couple of weeks ago. And this would be his first election, and he said honestly he was shaky though about making the decision. He registered to vote because we have pre-registration laws in Michigan now, so he was registered. But he said, I don't know, I don't know what this is about. And I asked him, well, is there anything in your community? Just start on your street. Is there anything that you want to see different? And he said, yeah, I wanted to do something about, I think the homes could be better taken care of on my street. And I was like, all right, Deontay, so what do you think could happen? Who could do something about that? And he said, well, we can get the people together, we could clean some stuff up, and maybe we can get some money or resources to the community. And, I did hear that, the city spends money on stuff like that. Maybe we could do it. And so what I said to him is, I want you to do all that. I'm going to help you get connected so you can organize this cleanup. You can organize talking to people in the local Flint government. There's good public servants there. I want to add something on top of what you're doing to make sure you make a difference. Voting can only help you. Voting can help you get closer to the vision of the community that you want. And I believe that you are powerful enough to use all the power at your disposal to make the change that you want to see. And I think the way we encourage people to vote, because that young man is casting their early ballot, he voted absentee already. But the way that you get people to vote is by letting them know that they have power. I'm not giving you power, you already have it. And then just making sure that there are enough avenues for them to use it. and that they include voting in how they make a difference. It's not the only thing you can do. It's not everything you should do, but it's a necessary thing you must do in order to make sure we can get closer. And doing so at every level to make sure we have allies at the local, county, state, federal level who share our values and are going to help us get closer to that vision. That's what this is all about. And I think our people, I think our voters in Michigan, all 10 million people in our state, are important enough to participate in that power. So that's what I ask them to think about when they vote.
Yeah.
So, Cliff, when they go to the blackest bus in America, what are you telling them? And say this for Michigan and for black voters and other folks who are watching at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so two things. One, Lieutenant Governor stole my answer because the way that, it was. And the way that I answer that question around that closing argument really does depend on whom I'm talking to at that moment, because everybody's got a different issue that's their motivation, right? And so what I tell people is pick an issue. Whatever your issue is, it is on the ballot right now. If your issue is our health, it's on the ballot. If it's about abortion rights, that's on the. If it's about democracy, if it's about our economy, our kids, our schools, our housing. All of that is on the ballot. And so depending on who I'm talking to, I really try to speak to that and drive that point home. And the overall theme is exactly, again, what Lieutenant Governor said, is that you've got the power to make a difference, right? There's a story that I often tell. I'm not going to tell it now because it goes into some history around Birmingham and Selma. But it's basically the heart of the story is about how one person's decision, who wasn't overly political, he was a high school student at the time in Birmingham, but one person's decision created a chain of reaction that led to Selma, that led to Bloody Sunday, that led to the Voting Rights Act, that has literally led in some ways to today. One person's decision to get involved literally changed the course of history. And so the only question we really have to ask ourselves is, what is our action going to be today? What is that step that we are going to take today that might cause that ripple effect that can literally change the future for us, our communities, this entire country? Each of us has the power to do that. Everybody we touch is an organizer, not just a voter. That's important. But everybody we touch is an organizer who has the power to spread that message to 5, 10, or 50 other people. That's
Well, they're so good. We up at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Y'all got closing thoughts?
I just want to say I am so happy that we had so many black men on this show. There's a narrative that tries to divide us, but I think these conversations are healing, not just in our politics and our policy, but in our personal community. We've never been such staunch advocates for this democracy that was placed upon us. We've always voted in favor of harm reduction, and we've built community with each other. So I really appreciate you guys being open with your thoughts and showing up today. And I'm happy to follow up with you on any Pistons assistance, questions, anything you need. I'm there for you.
It's too bad the mics didn't cut off.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
You're out of time.
You're out of time.
I like you, I enjoyed the conversation and the emphasis on black men. And not through the lens that we've heard it necessarily through the national media, but moreover through personal lived experiences that folks are reflecting on. And then my mind immediately jumped to, once we're through this election, how do we make sure that the voices, the issues, the concerns of black men continue to be present? That's right. Not as the community at fault for a loss. And I won't even state the opposite of that, because we never get the benefit of the privilege of being credited for the game.
That's right.
All the wins that we
How
have
about
been
that?
participatory in and delivered on behalf of the candidate that we believed in, but the blame that we largely get. So just thinking in my head, like, okay, well, what's our job now through this election to ensure that if we're centerfold to the conversation and the debate around policy now, that we also be centerfold to that conversation when it's talking about advancing, either through the Congress initiative from the White House to executive order, so on and so forth. Because I have to tell you, if we're at this 4 years from now, and our reflections are we're still not seen, not heard, not reflected, and no benefit, no gain, we're going to have a hard road to hoe. Trying to convince folks that it matters to vote and participate in the process. And so I think that's a charge we all ought to accept and figure out a solution for.
Well, for those of you who joined us today in Detroit, what up, though? We so happy to be here.
Shout out
For
to
those
them.
of you who are listening at home, thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 46 of Native Land Pod, and there are only 16 days until election. I'm going to end this like I did my BET Cypher and say, go vote. We out.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rod, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Welcome home, y'all.
What's
Welcome
up,
home.
sis?